WOCA.
WOCA.
All right, 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You know, this is a difficult world sometimes, Robin. In this news, the aftermath of the Robin Williams story, it occurs to everybody that there's an issue. And if you're a parent, you know, the one thing you want to make sure, and a loving parent, maybe I need to put the word loving in there. And I really don't put mother over father or father over mother. I really think that a loving parent is a loving parent is a loving parent. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have a daughter or a son, maybe the message is slightly altered because you know the nature of boys and you know the nature of girls, right?
Yeah.
So you got to tell each of those two sexes that this is what to expect from the other, and this is how to respect the other. And the one thing that occurs to me that I don't know if it applies to the Robin Williams story, but I just think that sometimes people just don't think that they're worth anything. It just bothers me so much when I hear somebody being so unable to understand that they are worth something. And I'm not a Bible scholar in any way, but I think God gave everybody something to be proud of, something to be worthy of. And I don't believe in telling people that they're not worth, you know, somebody says you're worthless. So I hate that, right? Mm-hmm. We have a wonderful book written by Vicki, Courtney. It is called Move On. You can stay where you are, or you can get honest and move on when mercy meets your mess. And she's going to explain what that means. Vicki Courtney is a national speaker to women of all ages. She's a best-selling author. I love her candor. I love the way she has addressed the readers with her book. And let's say good morning to her. Vicki Courtney. Good morning, Vicki.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Where are you?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
You speak as gently as you write. This is the way I was reading your words.
Oh, thank you.
So in Austin, Texas. Well, thank you for getting up early to be with us this morning. Yeah. You know, as a dad and as a brother of a sister, I have seen in women this somehow lack of understanding that they are valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is that's been a struggle of mine, and probably why God has me to continue to write on the topic of worth and where we can find our worth. But you're so right. I think, you know, in hearing about the Robin Williams tragedy, one of the things that struck me is just here he had all these resources available to get, you know, the help that he needed, and yet for whatever reason he didn't exercise that. We know he tried. We were hearing, you know, that he went back to rehab last year and that sort of thing. But, you know, one of the reasons I wrote this book is that I feel like, and I have to wonder if maybe this was a factor that led to his tragedy, I feel like there's this pressure that we feel that we can't be honest about the messy parts of our lives. And we can't be honest about all the ways that we try to find our worth. In fact, I read an article just yesterday where he was having money struggles. His last movie didn't do that well. His pilot was canceled for his new show after one season. And so for the first time, you know, in his very successful career, he was, you talk about someone, if you've accidentally, you know, misdefined your worth along the way, and you've based it on your accomplishments or your approval from other people, you will experience, you know, heartache and emptiness when those things fail to deliver. And I can't, you know, I'm certainly not, I'm the armchair psychologist, right? So I look at that and I have to wonder if maybe he had felt like he could be more open about those struggles or had a safe place to go and just acknowledge. I share in the book that great freedom comes in being able to say, it's okay to not be okay. Not to stay there, but then to, you know, have others remind us where that help can be found, or to help us take the next step if we need to get in and talk to someone, if it's a big enough issue, you know, on a more professional level or whatever that is. but just to at least have the freedom to say that behind the curtain of our lives, we're all pretty much a mess, aren't we?
I love the way you say it too, and you talk about snobbery. Actually, the term Christian snobbery, but I don't want the listeners to get the wrong idea because I got it when I read what you were talking about. But I can imagine somebody walking in trying to humble himself or herself and get help. And so they go to an organization, and all of a sudden they are holier than thou, better than thou. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that would I would walk away if that happened. I would say, oh, never mind. You know what? Never.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just as messed up as me. Don't pretend you're not. You know.
That's right. And I say, in the book that it breaks my heart that I think so many of our churches today have become showrooms for polished pretenders rather than hospitals for messed up sinners. And I think if we could get back to the business of, saying this is why we're here. We're here to basically remind everyone that we all have this condition called sin. We're all a mess, if you will. And while God may take that away or, remove that when we come to know Him, that doesn't mean we're not still a mess in trying to weed through that. But again, I think so often we find ourselves, in settings where it's just kind of the silent understanding there that you don't talk about those messy parts because of your life. You're supposed to have it all together now, right? Yeah,
right.
Well, what could possibly make a person get a messy life other than the a mess that normal people do? Because so many times you hear about the people that have the money, they allow themselves to do drugs and get on drugs. Why can't they stay away from that experience in the first place?
Yeah, and again, I didn't want to, I could have written a whole book just on the whole, we're in these messes because basically our own doing. We put ourselves there. But I even tackle just the fact that a lot of the messes we incur in our lives are outside of our control. What about those broken dreams, that thing that we thought we'd be doing by now, but, due to circumstances or some sort of unexpected illness, that's hit a family member or a struggle we're currently going through with a very rebellious teenager, or, and a lot of what I relied on in writing the book is just over the years as I do these women's events, and so many women would come up at the end. And maybe it's because, I'm a safe person in that I'm about to hop on an airplane and fly far away from them, and they're never going to see me again. And what do they have to lose, And they would share about these messes that they were involved in their lives. And again, I think this is where sometimes we have to be careful about that pointing fingers and Christian snobbery and think, we don't go through this kind of stuff. But I want to tell you, I had women sharing issues and struggles that were no different than anyone else in the world. Whether, I had one woman share with me at a recent conference that she's been in a long time affair, that she's had 4 affairs over the course of, I think she said, her 20-year marriage. She's never told a soul, but she was miserable. She was absolutely miserable and was saying, basically, I want to take a step out of this now. I want to move away from this mess, but I don't feel like there's anyone here that I could ever confide that in. She acknowledged right there, she said, I know something's wrong with me at the core of my being, that I am involved in this. I keep looking to this for my worth, right? It goes back to that worth.
It's an interesting thing, and you're right. If people can get together with like people, and guess what, we're all alike. We've all made so many mistakes. The notes that were provided to me to be able to speak intelligently to you, Vicki, included a story about your son and his fiancée, and she got pregnant. You want to share that a little bit and how that applies to this book?
Sure, and just as a bit of background, I happened to, this is a couple years ago, I was writing at the time and about to turn them in a manuscript for a book that I have called 5 Conversations You Must Have with Your Son. So, there's a little bit of irony there. And in fact, the moment my son walked in, he came home from work. Wedding was about 3 months down the road. And he came back from work after leaving for work that morning because he was just so distraught. And he said, Mom, I have to tell you something. I actually had in my lap the chapter that I was going over one last time on sexual purity. So just to give you kind of a background of
Oh, wow.
the irony of this moment. Yeah, and so he drops the bomb and he tells me, my fiance Casey's pregnant. And, I realized, well, first of all, I want you to know there was no thought whatsoever of, oh, no, I have this book coming out, talking about sexual purity. I immediately lapsed into grace mode, and I'm thankful for that because I think there might have been a time in my life where I would have thought, oh, no, damage control, what do we do? But I was at a healthy enough place in my own life at that point where, I hugged him and I said, God's grace is so big. We're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And we made the decision as a family that we were going to be honest about that mess and come clean and use it as just a way to point others to God's bigger story. And so, my grandson is 2.5 now. I have another one on the way. We look back. That's just one of many messes.
And I didn't mean to cut you short. We're just so out of time, but I think you just said the key right there. I mean, this happened in my family too, by the way, more than once. and nobody is, nobody is looking down on anybody who went through these experiences, and everybody loves the children that were a result of it. Not that we would say it's a good idea to do this, but ultimately you did the right thing, and the beautiful child that came out of it is the most important part. I love what you say. I mean, you are so honest. Vicki, Courtney, thank you for being on the air with us. The book is called Move On. How do we get the book?
Amazon, I'm sure has it, or my website, VickiCourtney.com.
Okay, and Robin already put that on our website, so go to WOCA.com. Go to the guest list for today. You'll see Vicki's name at the 9:50 slot, and Vicki spells her first name Vicki, and then Courtney, just like Courtney Cox. Vicki Courtney. I wish we had more time to talk, Vicki. I like what you say. Thank you for being on with us today.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
All right. We'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Today in Florida Ag News on a Southeast AgNet, USDA's National Agriculture Statistics Service released their August crop condition report Tuesday afternoon. And with the cotton numbers, here's Angie Considine.
Area planted to upland cotton is estimated at 11.2 million acres, unchanged from June, but up